Did you know that this, the latest iteration of Pirates of the Caribbean made the most money of all the Pirates of the Caribbean?
Is that actually true?
Yeah.
According to Joyce.
It was 584 million or something like that.
Like
Internationally,
Yeah.
for sure, because it was dismal. It was like the worst. Domestically, it was terrible.
Really?
I think, yeah.
Well, this will be a
know.
fact check for me later.
But yeah, no, I remember, like, I did not want to see that movie. My sister, who's a pretty big fan of the Pirates of the Caribbean, the early ones anyways, went to see it and said it was terrible.
Oh.
Like, very much like a movie for children. And it's very, obviously, seems to be a desperate ploy to just keep that franchise alive for now.
I heard
but
that
I don't know.
even though this one kind of wrapped up a lot of stories that we know, it's still set up a little bit for a next one.
Like more Pirates?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
It's
'Cause
just
I think-
Transformers.
yeah.
It's the same thing. It's like the same thing. Yeah.
Because I think there's like an after credit scene
Oh, of course.
that kind of sets it up for a just in case next one.
Just in case this one makes enough money to merit another one, which I'm sure it did overseas for sure, like you're saying. They're
Wow.
popular abroad.
We are popular abroad. You're listening.
It's true.
I don't know if it's true or not.
We're huge in New Zealand.
You're listening to the Watchmen podcast. I'm Matt, and with me, as always, Sam and Joyce. This week, we are also going abroad to Dunkirk to talk about Christopher Nolan's latest movie, which I'm predicting we all liked. That's my prediction for this one.
Bold prediction.
Bold prediction.
But before we do that, let's do the news. And also, before we do the news, let me just note today is also we're debuting our Game of Thrones segment. So get ready for that, which will come right after the news, which will happen right now.
Please listen carefully.
In mustache news, something we regularly go comment about, the Superman you will definitely see in the upcoming Justice League movie will not have a mustache.
Shocking.
This is despite the fact that Henry Cavill did have a mustache when he recorded the scenes. There was apparently some overlap between Mission Impossible, where Cavill was in and he had a mustache, and the filming of Justice League. So Warner Brothers decided to spend a ton of money to CGI out the old soup strainer. I, for one, believe they should just go ahead and let Superman have a mustache. Give him the old 80s dad look. Maybe a potbelly or something like that. Like laid-back Superman.
I'd like to see a version of the movie where every character has a mustache except for Jim Gordon.
Somebody
He just doesn't have a mustache.
That would be funny. Somebody made a Wonder Woman clip with her and a mustache.
I saw that one. That was pretty good.
Yeah. Anyway, whole whack of trailers came out because it was Comic-Con, including probably my favorite one was the Thor Ragnarok trailer. This trailer showed off the new comedic Thor, a bit of a departure from the first two movies in the franchise. If you're wondering what led to the shift, director Taika Waititi certainly played a role. He's directed comedic films such as What We Do in the Shadows. Waititi also, however, credits the actors themselves, claiming that at least 80% of the film is improvised. Here's a quote from him. My style of working is I'll often be behind the camera or right next to the camera yelling words at people like, say this, say it that way. I'll straight up give Anthony Hopkins a line reading. I don't care. I wonder if Michael Bay gave Anthony Hopkins line readings.
He sure did, especially the line where he calls someone fat in the movie. That was the total Michael Bay, the Transformers.
The interesting thing, of course, about Waititi coming out to say that there's a lot of improv is that this is precisely the reasons that Warner Brothers fired the directors of...
or Lucasfilm.
Lucasfilm of the Young Han Solo movie.
Yeah.
So, some people like improv, I guess.
Apparently. I saw What We Do in the Shadows. It's on Netflix.
Yes.
I would definitely recommend watching it. I haven't seen his other movie, Hunt for the Wilder People.
I've seen that. It's good.
But he's super funny. He's a funny dude. So
I will say...
And the trailer was epic for Thor. So, I mean, Hulk's got talking parts.
Yeah.
Great. Funny.
Yeah. Right. Thor Ragnarok comes to theaters November 3rd, so it'll be here soon, and it does look fantastic. Moving on, we mentioned that Daniel Craig is rumored to be back as James Bond, and now we know when. It's official from the James Bond Twitter. James Bond will be back in cinemas on November 8th, 2019. There's still no word about who will direct or what the story will be about. Maybe another Blofeld movie since they put him in the last one. Bond goes to space. That would be great too. Who knows? It's also still not 100% confirmed that Craig will be the guy, though all signs point that way. I personally am still holding out for Idris Elba. That's my personal Bond.
I
Yeah.
love Idris Elba.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely still going to be Craig. I
Yes.
think they want to go out on top. I will say there have been a couple frontrunners named for directors Denis Villeneuve is on there. I don't think he's going to be directing this movie, though.
No.
David Mackenzie, who directed Hell or High Water, he's on the list. And then Yann Demange. He directed a movie called White Boy Rick.
Wow.
But he's French. Would that be a crime against James Bond to have
That's
a Frenchman directed?
Well, Denis Villeneuve is
French-Canadian.
I don't know. You know.
I think it's fine. People need to relax.
More things to come out of Comic-Con. Westworld, one of our favorite shows, had a teaser trailer for its upcoming season 2. As you recall, and this is, of course, spoilers for anyone who hasn't watched Westworld and listens to all of our episodes except our Westworld episode. At the end of season 1, things did not look good for anyone who was not a robot. In the teaser, things continue to not look good for anyone who is not a robot. It looks like Dolores has embraced her new kill all humans persona, and it also looks like the Man in Black is happy to have a real challenge. No sign of Anthony Hopkins, sadly, and it looks like he's definitely dead and gone, which is, it breaks my heart because he gave a fantastic performance. Better than the latest Transformers.
Yeah.
That's my hot take.
They should have like a little in the background like Bender from Futurama, like kill all humans, because that's
Did
just
you
the
see
theme right now.
Dolores on that horse just shooting people?
Yeah,
Yeah, it was pretty epic.
Yeah, badass.
Finally, Star Trek Discovery had a full trailer. The new trailer gives a glimpse of the early days of the Federation, as well as what appears to be first contact with Klingons. And I gotta say, Klingons look hella cool in their like old-timey Klingon outfits. I guess future outfits, really.
Is this still with the same cast, or is this
Yep.
a brand new cast?
It's the same group as before. It just got it.
Oh, great.
It was delayed, so it's still. What's the actress name? Is the captain? She was in Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Michelle Yeoh.
Oh.
Anyway, still the same cast. It got a different showrunner. It used to be Brian Fuller. I almost said singer. I always get
man.
very different movie. But yeah, it got delayed. It was supposed to come out last December. It got pushed back 9 months. But the trailer looks pretty good considering the rocky start that the series had. It comes out on September 24th. That's the news. Let's check in on the views from the Seven Kingdoms.
I'm Game of Thrones with it, mama. 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 I'm Game of Thrones with it.
So, another Game of Thrones episode in the books. Can you believe we're already 2 of 7 of the way there? Like, it's rolling along.
It's both crazy, but also necessary for, their plot is going fast and it's necessary. Like, I think it was season 4 where it was almost soap opera-like, where it's taking 3 episodes to make decisions because they need to drag it out. And drag it out.
Yeah.
But now it's like episode 1, John gets a note. Episode 2, John leaves.
John's on the road.
Yeah.
That's true. So I think what we'll do for this segment is we will pick a winner from last week, a loser from last week, and then we'll make maybe one prediction for the next episode. And if you want to add in just any favorite part of the episode that happened, feel free to do that. So let's go through a winner from last week. Joyce, do you have one?
The first one that comes to mind is Hot Pie.
Nice.
I mean, while everyone's dying around him, he's just fulfilled his dream and making pies.
He's thriving.
And he's excelling at his craft. Also, did you know that the Hot Pie in real life is a baker?
Really?
He bakes pies. And
I saw that. That was like a news article that was
and
popping up on my Facebook feed.
He now bakes wolf cookies or whatever it is.
Really?
Fire wolf cookies, yeah.
Well, it looks like a win for the character and the actor.
Yeah, so that's my winner.
Sam, do you have a winner?
I do. A little bit off the board as well. I'm going to go with Nymeria the Dire Wolf.
Oh, yeah.
She's my winner. She, right? Yeah.
She, yeah.
She's my winner this week because there was that scene, obviously, where her and Arya kind of reunited, but had the courage to be like, no, I have my own life now. Thank you. I've got my pack. I am a lone wolf. I'm off doing my wolf things. I've had my own wolf adventures.
I'm doing wolf things.
She's not really a lone wolf if she's the leader.
She's the leader of the pack, but just like Arya is sort of on her own to, she's changed from all the way back in season 1, episode 4 or 2 that we saw. the direwolf last, many things have happened, and she had the courage to just say, you know what?
That's a good one.
I have my own life now. Thank you.
If that meeting means that Arya will not go seek out Jon and go back to Winterfell, I will just...
I don't think it.
Don't know what
I
I'll
think
do.
it just means that things won't go. You can't go back to where you started.
Can never go back.
You can never go back.
I'm going to go outside the box as well and pick Jorah Mormont
Yes.
as my winner from the episode. Now, it seems strange because he was in utter agony, but the fact that he is being treated at all for grayscale, as opposed to the other guy saying, there's a sword over there and you have a day, maybe go end your life, I think that makes him a winner. He's got a chance now.
Yeah.
Where he had none before.
That scene where he points to the sword reminded me. I don't know. This is a real throwback, but Team America. Remember that movie?
Yep.
The puppets. There's a scene where they're sending the main puppet dude on the dangerous suicide mission, and instead of giving him a gun or a cyanide pill just in case he gets captured, they're here, and they hand him a hammer.
Yeah.
He's you could take your own life. That reminded me of that. I was like, oh my God, that sucks. Poor Jorah.
Let's go through our losers very quickly. We've got a timer going on. So who's a loser?
Well, I'll continue on the off the beaten path and say everyone's collective interest in chicken pot pies, while Sam is on Dirty Jobs Westeros edition.
Yeah, I will say, to tag on to that, I was going to say my other winner would have been, the editors of Game of Thrones for, having some fun.
That cut.
And definitely making cuts like that, or the one where the cut to the book after the steamy sex scene. I was like, ooh, good job, editing team.
Do you have a loser?
I do have a loser, a shocking loser, someone who we never thought would lose in Game of Thrones, Lyanna Mormont. It's the first time she was ever actually shot down. Every time she's a scene stealer. This time she was like, "No, Jon, you need to stay in the north. You're our true king. This is where you belong." And he's like, "Nah, I'm gonna go check out our only hope, which is to make friends with the lady with the dragons." So I thought Lyanna unfortunately took the L in trying to keep Jon in the north.
I'm going to go with Yara Greyjoy, which seems a bit obvious, but I think she went from having a pretty amazing position as being with Daenerys and having the fleet and looking great, looking like she's so smart and crafty, to being kind of screwed over by Theon, but maybe understandably losing her fleet. Her uncle has her captive now. She's probably going to die in an episode or two. Yeah. Finally, we'll wrap up with some predictions. Our topic for predictions is going to be when Jon meets Daenerys. What's going to happen? Are they going to team up? Not going to team up? What do you have? Sam?
What do I think? I think they are going to team up. I think it'll take... Actually, it shouldn't take that long. It could probably happen by the end of next episode. Maybe start with some tension, but at the rate this show moves at, I think that we could get a team up, especially in light of her recent kind of loyalty casualties.
Okay.
I think that he's going to meet a dragon. And maybe put two and two together, that after Dragon Glass and Dragon something else.
Stone?
It's Dragon Stone. No, Dragon...
Dragonstone's the place. Dragon Glass is the weapon they use.
Yeah.
Dragon
So
Fire.
maybe he'll put two together that Dragon Fire might actually also be a part of this trifecta of taking down...
I think he sort of
White
hinted at it,
Walkers.
too.
Somebody mentioned...
Somebody did. I can't remember if it was him.
It might have been him, actually.
Being like, oh, yeah.
Dragons.
She's got dragons, man.
Fire stops the whites. She has dragons. I think there's somebody who supported him. I am going to go with the crazy bold prediction and say that the talks begin for an arranged marriage or something like that to unite these two houses, which really is actually a Targaryen marrying a Targaryen, but that's also how they do. So
Yeah, she'd be marrying her nephew.
yes.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I don't feel like Dany would be up for that.
But she's been embroiled in marriage arrangements and such before, and I
that's
think she
true.
knows about it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
She's pretty savvy, but I think she's in a dangerous position now. Just she'll be learning that obviously her Dornish and
She just lost
Iron
her fleet,
Island connections are pretty much in shambles.
unfortunately.
So, but even though they're still
Dornish
alive,
are
right?
still, holding strong. Cause
They were going to
never-
ferry them, though.
Yeah, they never
Yeah.
made it to Dorne. So they're still alive. They're just not.
Well, but would the Dorne support her without... There's no
That's the
ruler for
thing.
Dorne anymore. Because remember, they killed the king.
And all the sand snakes
true.
have been killed except like the mother
And
is
the one
held
daughter.
captive and
Yeah.
Yara's held captive.
Alaria's still
Alaria
there.
is still alive, and the daughter, the one daughter. Anyway,
she's
Before we
technically
end, I
in
would
the-
like to say though, everyone must agree that it was a badass scene when they were all around the war room table, like all the most powerful women, save Cersei and Westeros,
Yeah.
gathered together for some good
And you
bantering.
know, now everyone on a throne of some sort are women.
Yeah.
interesting.
All through
That's
Westeros.
true.
Well,
Yeah.
Because
actually, yeah, because Sansa took over
Sansa is
Yep.
in charge of
as
King's
the
Landing.
Queen of the North.
Yeah.
Well, that's our views from the 7. Let's play the trailer for Dunkirk.
The enemy tanks have stopped.
Why?
Why waste precious tanks when they can pick us off from the air like fish in a barrel?
There are 400,000 men on this beach.
He's coming back round. He's coming back round! Where are we going? Dunkirk. I'm not going back. There's no hiding from this sun.
Tick, tick, tick.
The clock is ticking down.
Dunkirk. So, Christopher Nolan's war movie. What did you guys think? Like it? Hate it? Don't go see it in theaters?
I'll get right into it and just give that a solid Sam 10 out of 10. I loved it. In IMAX, 70 millimeter, of course. I loved it. Fantastic visual experience, great storytelling. Performances were solid. Soundtrack, incredible. Very memorable. I think just from both filmmaking perspective, and I'm a huge war film fan. This was unlike any war film I'd ever seen, really. And this is one I think that people will look back on for sure in the years to come and just say that was quite the achievement. And running at a swift hour 45.
Yes.
Which for Nolan is unheard of.
Yeah.
Uh,
Could never
I
be
don't
a Michael
remember.
Bay movie.
Could never be a Michael Bay movie. And I think just for me, the experience of watching it in that theater was something to remember just because, like, I thought, I saw Transformers in IMAX 3D, and Bay shot that movie in, like, full-on digital IMAX, like, virtually the entire movie. I think 98% of that movie was shot in IMAX. And this, as a spectacle, blew it out of the water on
Perhaps
film.
literally.
Literally. So I'm giving it a rave review, but it's really great.
Joyce,
I'm also
we saw
going
it together.
to.
so-
Yes, we did. I'm also going to give it a rave review. It was very stressful for the hour and 45 minutes. But what I've always criticized about Nolan's previous movies is that he tries to get too clever. And in this one, it's almost like he played it straight and he told the story as it happened, and there wasn't layer after layer after layer. And I really enjoyed it. It's just, he is a great filmmaker, but he didn't try to be too tricksy.
Yeah.
But it was still distinctly a Nolan.
It
There
was-
were 3 layers, actually.
There were 3 layers,
but-
but it wasn't, trying to outsmart
Yeah,
the
you don't have
viewer.
to read into this
For sure.
movie. And chronologically, even though things are not synced, you weren't lost. Just to weigh in my thoughts, I also thought fantastic. One of the great war movies I think of all time.
Totally.
What strikes me about Dunkirk is it is an experience to watch it. It reminds me of sort of that mold of theater where the audience is expected to feel what the characters are going through. Dunkirk is basically the third act of a movie stretched for an hour and 45 minutes. Like, it doesn't feel short because you are panicked the entire time. If you read about that 97-year-old veteran of Dunkirk who watched the movie, I was like, how did he survive watching this movie?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
tremendous performances, even though there's such little dialogue. You have to figure there are some Oscar nominations coming, especially for someone like Mark Rylance. Really fantastic score. Hans Zimmer really branching out a little bit. We watched it with Laura, my partner, who is she has a doctorate in music and does a lot of experimental performance music, and she was like, I felt like I was at a new music concert, like hearing Hans play like this. And also, I thought definitively a British war movie. It wasn't a movie about how great Britain was and how it was going to crush the enemy. I know you had Churchill at the end. It was more about endurance, survival. There was nothing definitively British about how the characters did things. And really a powerful way to tell a story. So kudos to Christopher Nolan for doing that in an hour and a half. Now, I have a series of questions for us to go through that I wrote down that I think will be fun for us to answer. Where do you think this ranks in Nolan's filmography? Sam, we'll start with you.
Oh, I think it'd be at the top. As a memorable, like, don't get me wrong, I watched Interstellar in IMAX, very much almost in the same seat as I recall, and I went by myself, and I remember it being a very powerful movie. It was immense and at times very emotional, but it's a behemoth too. It's very long, and there's some amazing sequences, but some like sloping parts. I recently rewatched Inception, and it's pretty good, interesting, but this was just like the combination of everything he does well, just like a punishing pace. Like at the end of Inception, for example, that last hour is unreal. It's like again, like the third act just stretched out over half of a film. This one just took that and made it the entire movie. In terms of memorability, maybe Memento might only be one of the only ones to rival it. And then in terms of performances, like Heath Ledger's Joker might be the only thing that would, surpass it in terms of like on-screen presence of characters. But I think just as the whole package, this has got to be up at the top.
Shane or Joyce, where do you put it?
I think, were you going to call me Shane?
Yeah, that's kind of weird because you were talking about it earlier. Well, I'll ask Shane personally.
So I think that for me, I think in his filmography it'd be at the top for the audience. For me, it's at the very top. I haven't found anything that I would criticize this movie for it as a viewer. And I always have found, like I said before, I've always found that, Memento was wonderful, but he likes to trick the audience. He likes to make them think, which is fine, but it's not in a clever way. It's just in a convoluted way. And same with Inception, same with Interstellar, and even the Batman movies, right? Like,
yeah, there's no gimmick.
And so I found this to be quite a masterpiece.
I will say, it is sometimes easy to forget other really great films he has done, like Insomnia, with Robin Williams and Al Pacino, the crime procedural. It's a great movie, actually, very straightforward as well. And also The Prestige, like it's a great twist at the end, but that's another fantastic movie that I kind of forgot about.
The Prestige.
And it's an excellent film as well. I haven't rewatched it recent enough to be like, for sure it's, number 2 or number 3, but
I rewatched The Prestige before we did our Nolan special, which go back in our Watchmen history, and you can find it pretty early on. And The Prestige was my favorite Nolan movie, and this is much better. And this is a testament to Dunkirk. It's really maybe my favorite movie we've reviewed that as a new movie. I just like, and it really is because it is such an experience to watch it. Not that it's just, there's not really a narrative character arc thing going on. It's about a moment in history from different perspectives, and it's the kind of thing where you watch it and you're like, this can only be accomplished in this specific form. And I think you really have to respect someone who's done that. And Nolan did a fantastic job of getting it together and organizing this and using practical effects and bringing in the ships and the planes and even working Michael Caine into the movie.
Yeah, that was great.
He's on the radio broadcast if you hear him. And great performances like Tom Hardy at the end with the plane. Such a great movie. Everyone should see it. Sorry, I was going to move on, but
I was just going to say one last thing is that, and my memory of his past movies might just be faded, but I don't remember any of them being this beautiful to watch. Like, it's visually stunning.
It's the same cinematographer as Interstellar, Van Hoytma.
Yeah. He's very good.
Yeah.
But there is something to be said, like for that 70 millimeter.
Yeah, we all saw
film.
it 70 millimeter.
I don't know if we're going
IMAX.
to talk about it more.
If you are in Edmonton, go there. Well, we'll have time at the end.
Yeah.
Let's keep going through my questions because that's what's really important here
It's
today.
true.
We ranked it on Nolan's filmography. Where does this rank in the Hans Zimmer score canon? Joyce.
I don't think I'm familiar unless
Any Bwomp movie.
Inception.
Bond movie.
Bwah,
Yeah, I'll look them
bwah.
up for you.
That sound
Yeah.
effect that became famous after Inception came out.
I think I know
Was
all
him.
of his work. I just can't think of them right now. But
For
I
sure.
mean, his music definitely added to the movie. I mean, that's sort of what makes you anxious, right? Like the ticking, the violins. I wondered what if the movie would be as stressful to watch if you didn't have the soundtrack.
Yeah, definitely not. It's one of those things that I think it's just so reminiscent of like a classic like the Jaws soundtrack, like John Williams, or like something like a John Williams soundtrack, where it's like there's just key beats and key cues that you associate with, sheer terror or sheer excitement and joy, like from the most horrifying scenes or the most tense where the clock is ticking to that triumphant moment on the mole where the ships were coming in and the orchestra swells and you really feel the joy that Kenneth Branagh's character has of seeing like that hope is actually real in this situation to the very ending, the climax of the film where or the just after the climax where Tom Hardy's landing on the beach and it's just so emotional. And yeah, this movie wouldn't be the same without the soundtrack. And I think Laura is correct in saying that it's just different, not necessarily better. Like he's so good at making iconic music, but there's just something to be said about someone being so open to experimentation with a close collaborator, like knowing his history with Nolan and being able to try this and say, I remember when he did Interstellar, the music came along with the process of making the film. Like Nolan pitched him like a rough idea, barely, and the score built the movie essentially. And I can't help but feel that their connection, like I can't wait to read the liner notes essentially on this when it does eventually get released, because I'm sure there's an interesting story behind how they worked on the music to match the film.
I think also, I think it's got to be among the best of Hans Zimmer, and not in the sense of like what I like about it is that not just music for the film, but really create a soundscape that played throughout. There's no point where there's no background music ambience, and yet it works so well and it never detracts. And to me, that's really a nuanced way to create music for a film. I know it's not like the first time it's been done or anything like that, but it's really adds to it. And I thought it's not just like, oh, hey, I have a dramatic point here. Could you compose something for that? It's really like, this is the movie. We need perfect music to go with it. And that was the task. And I thought he was up to it. And you're right, Joyce, to point out or maybe it was Sam, I can't remember, the iconic ticking will be something that we remember about this movie.
And it's like it runs just so like you said, thoroughly throughout the movie. Like the end of the film, it's the stark end when the ticking stops, right?
Yeah.
Ticking stops, cut to the image of the main character, and the movie's over, and you're like,
Moving on, who gave the better stern and determined British face, Kenneth Branagh or Mark Rylance, Joyce?
I think Mark Rylance, because he had the extra stern dad look also.
Yes, he
Yeah.
was everybody's dad for that movie,
Yeah.
for sure.
So Mark Rylance for sure.
Mark Rylance too, because once you kind of get that little bit of his character near the end, where you're
Yeah.
like he lost his son
son.
already in the war, everything just clicks with him,
Yeah.
and you're like, he just knew what he was doing all along, and he was just like this representation. I'm sure many British, expatriates in the audience were like, yes, yes,
And I
Mark
think
Rylance.
he might also be the only one where we get any type of backstory.
yes.
He's the only
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, we
There's
don't
not a lot of character development,
We
really.
learned
I
one
liked.
character was French.
Yeah. What about you, Matt?
For me, it's Kenneth Branagh.
Oh.
There's so many shots of him just
Very
standing on
Shakespearean.
that pier. Well, yeah, standing on that pier, just staring out with his almost literally a stiff upper lip about the whole situation.
But it's true, because even he gets his moment of there's that great scene where he has to watch that ship like right beside him sink and all
Yeah,
these people, and he's
cutting
just
that.
got to stand there
Yeah.
Yeah.
and see it happen to Q 30 minutes later in the movie, and he's shedding a single tear of hope as
Yeah.
the ships come in, being like, wow.
I was thinking while I was watching every ship get destroyed, would I still try and get on a ship? Or would I just stick it out on the beach?
Yeah.
I thought
You
that
know?
as well.
Yeah.
And I thought I'd probably just stay on the beach.
Yeah.
I don't know.
More
Yeah, it seems
chance.
awful on the boats.
Yeah.
But
Did not look
I guess if you'd come from the town and been shot at the whole time, you might want to just do whatever you can to get out.
Yeah, that's true too.
What was your favorite of the storyline? It's divided into 3 storylines: the air, the sea, and the mole. Which one did you like the most?
I'll go with the air because it was just spectacular. I found myself thinking, how the hell did they film this in certain scenarios? It was just so beautiful. I think such an evolution onto some of the interesting kind of aerial stuff he did from Interstellar kind of played into this. But we also know that he's been great at playing with airplanes before. Like the probably only good moment of The Dark Knight Rises was that opening Bane airplane sequence, which again was like all practical effects.
With Littlefinger.
With Littlefinger, yes. This was amazing. The aerial, kind of the dog fighting, and just looking at Tom Hardy's eyes the whole movie. You just stare into those forever.
You get lost.
I'm having a hard time picking between air and sea, and I think I might have a slight lean towards sea because I really enjoyed Mark Rylance in
He
this
was great.
movie. I also really liked Cillian Murphy,
Yep.
who the shivering soldier, as he was credited as. I think it was a very realistic portrayal of, soldiers.
He was the Theon Greyjoy.
Well,
of
and
the
know,
film.
we think of soldiers as brave and heroic, and they are, but you will forget that they're men who are scared and
He's shell shocked.
and completely destroyed mentally and emotionally, right? So I really enjoyed that. Pretty shit for Tom Hardy though, at the end. But I think I'll go with C.
Honestly, though, he probably has the best chance of surviving the war out of everyone else. 'Cause
that was the other thing about reading the quote from that 97-year-old veteran guy is he's like, yeah, it reminded me of all my friends at Dunkirk. And then he talked about how a lot of them would die throughout the war.
That's the thing
Yeah.
that stuck with me, I think, almost the most leaving the film was I was like,
That
well,
was the
you survived
beginning.
this whole ordeal, and probably next weekend you're like being shipped to Africa.
yeah.
to go
Head off
fight.
to Italy. Head
Yeah.
off to Africa.
You know,
Yeah.
and I was like, that is just so, it's unbelievable because you're like, the war is going to go on for 5 more years.
Yes. Eventually France. It's, yeah.
So, like, Tom Hardy probably actually, like, ended up,
Why do you think? Because he was in prison.
like, at least in the prisoner of
Yeah.
war camp. Like,
Yeah.
you're
It wouldn't
not-
be great.
It wouldn't be great, but I don't know. I don't know what the conditions were in
What
Nathan's
about
prison.
you, Matt?
So probably the air. Probably because like my grandfather was when he was in the war, he was a mechanic for planes. So my brothers and I sort of grew up with. He would show us all the old planes and everything like that. So I kind of grew up really knowing all the planes and appreciating them and things like that. So it was really cool to see the Spitfires and the BF-109s and the Stukas and everything like that. And they're clearly using like either restored or original planes or refurbished or something like that. And they're flying around. And to see how tactile those planes are, how mechanical with the switches. And I really loved it when, Tom Hardy's characters has to ask how much fuel the guy has left and then write it down in chalk and then pull out a stopwatch so he can figure out how much he has left. Those planes only had an hour of fuel. That's as long as they could fly for before they would run
wow.
out. So not a lot of time at all. And then, there's tension when he's trying to shoot down these planes just in time and get out of the plane when crashed in the water. Apparently you can land in the water pretty easily, but that is not to detract from the other parts. And I know we didn't even mention them all, but they're all fantastic. But there for me just was kind of great.
The Mole, I will say, though, I think the opening shot and opening sequence of the movie, like, talk about selling a spectacle right away. Like, just the scene of them in the town, just taking up every inch of that screen, I think will be forever imprinted in my mind as, like, a great opening shot in a film, opening sequence in that scale and scope, because you're like, okay, I'm there. I'm like,
Well,
I am in the street with you. Thank you.
Totally, absolutely, 100%. And I felt like the opening scene set the tone for what you can expect for the rest of the movie, because they're just sort of walking through, trying to take a drink from a hose, picking up some pamphlets,
just trying to
everything's
take a
fine. So, yeah, that's right. And you're getting shot at, and I think the message was clear. There is no rest in this movie.
Yeah.
Don't think at any point that you as a viewer either can take a break. And you think about war movies like, say, Saving Private Ryan that have these ebbs and flows. This movie was on tilt the whole time.
Yeah.
Let's move on. Harry Styles. Yay or boo?
It took me a while to recognize him, but I am not his target demographic.
No, neither am I.
But I found out that actually he was cast by Christopher Nolan before realizing that he was like
Yeah,
a
Christopher
big
Nolan
pop
didn't
star.
really know.
So that I appreciated that. I felt like he blended in pretty well. I didn't have any problem with him.
I'll say it's no Ed Sheeran appearance.
Yeah.
I'm not a big Harry Styles fan either, so to me, it's not like seeing the biggest celebrity in the world like it would
Yeah.
be for some people, like watching the movie. So it's hard to kind of relate to those fans. But I thought he was just good. Like he was fine, totally fit in. Like he had probably more speaking parts than the lead character,
Yeah.
and I thought it was interesting that they kind of gave him this, like, I'm not going to call him a villain, but sort of the he's the one kind of
Naysayer.
saying, the naysayer, the every man for himself, kind of a sympathetic role, but also sort of a villainous role when you're cheering for this one sort of hero character and his
Even
friend.
though he was saved, right?
Yeah.
Was it Tommy, Finn Whitehead's character, the main character?
They all survived except for the French kid
Yeah, but it was the French kid
and some of the others that
Yeah.
burned in the fire.
It was the French kid and Tommy who pulled him out of the water, right? Or was it?
I don't remember.
Or was it?
No, he was already on the boat. He was the one. He got pulled onto the boat, like onto Mark Rylance's boat, and he was the one who said that the other kid was dead.
Right.
He was like,
But we met.
be careful of him, and he's like,
We met Harry Styles when Tommy and the French kid pulled him into the rafters. Is
he
that
was
correct?
swimming to the pier.
Got
yeah,
it,
and they
yeah.
pulled him onto the pier.
Yeah.
And then they pretended like they were also on the boat,
Yeah,
so
they
they could get
dunked
onto the next
themselves,
boat.
Yeah.
I also thought he's good. I mean, in the sense that I didn't know who he was, so he just looked like another actor, which I think when you are a musician coming into a film, that's how he should be.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
good for him. Better than Ed Sheeran. Did you have a favorite scene? And if so, what was it?
I think I already touched on in the opening sequence and how excellent it was. Other than that, I'm trying to stay like the air sequences were also good. Maybe the first dogfight I'll
Yeah.
go with, just because watching some of the interplay just between, or it's just some of that interplay between like how Tom Hardy had to act without really saying or being able to show off much of his face, like the concern he has, making decisions, looking at his fuel gauge, looking up, trying to square up the enemy fighter in his little sights, and you're kind of taking a breath in every time you see his fingers move towards the little trigger on his the
Stick. Yeah.
of the aircraft. It was just great tension and so claustrophobic in that little space. So I would say, maybe that first dogfight, just because of how visceral it felt, kind of in the air there.
Mine was, and I'm a sucker for a tug at your heartstrings scene. So it was when all of the civilian boats started appearing, and
Yeah.
Kenneth Branagh shed a tear. I got very emotional watching that as well. So that would be my favorite.
I think for me, I'm going to give two. I know it's cheating. One is when the soldiers get back and they are, they all feel like they're failures. And there's that one blind priest
This is the
handing
most
them out
Christopher
stuff,
Nolan part of the
and
movie, I'll
he's
say.
touching their face, and the guy's like, all we did was survive, and he said, it's enough. I thought that was really cool. But also Tom Hardy trying to land the plane, and he's got to pump the gear because it's not going down right, so he's just
Yeah.
like pumping on that landing gear, and you
Yeah.
could watch it like slowly
Yeah.
come out like by chunk until it finally comes out all the way.
That scene of the city or the town,
sweeping.
it was
Yeah.
beautiful.
I will say I was hoping, just like in Mad Max, like when he shot down that last plane when he's out of juice and everyone's cheering, that he would turn and do the thumbs up, like out the window, just like, yeah. So I could have another GIF to use,
Yeah.
Tom, if you're
you're
maybe
listening.
there's like a deleted scene or something, like that'd be amazing. I will add that now that I'm thinking about it, there is one more sequence or possibly just moment that I remember really is sticking with me, which is it was the first bombing run against them on the beach, and there's that unreal scene, and it was just like 10 seconds long, but the main character, Tommy, I think, is taking cover, but the bombs are just going off like from off in the distance, like boom, 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 moving closer and closer to him before the last one explodes, probably like 10 feet away from him, and it was just an unreal, just the sound and the racket and the vibration was just coming closer and closer and closer, and it just stops short of you, and you're like, okay,
Yeah.
this sets up how terrifying it would be for
You
sure.
know, I don't know why I was so fixated with this, but in the opening sequence, he takes his helmet off. And I could not get over that he took his helmet off. And I was worried about him the whole time. I thought this is how before
He's
I
got
really,
bigger problems.
Yeah, before I figured out that he was going to be a main character, I thought he's going to take the helmet off and like a Steven Spielberg movie, he's going to get shot in the head
Right.
immediately after. Yeah.
My least favorite scene or part of the movie or something you didn't like. Anything?
I didn't love when all the boys were in the ship waiting for the shore to
Oh, you didn't like
to
the
rise
Harry
again.
Styles part.
I guess the Harry Styles part. I don't like scenes where people are turning on each other. I think it's just a personal preference. There was nothing wrong with it
Yeah.
in terms of a style or in terms of the dialogue. It was just not for me.
This is pretty nitpicky, but I mean, at kind of after that first like barrage of things, you obviously have to get into a little bit of exposition, and there was kind of the first scene where all of the commanding officers and Kenneth Branagh are kind of in a little powwow on the pier there. And it's just sort of them explaining the situation, how many men are at stake, and this and that and the other thing. It just felt like, not because I've seen the marketing and I know what the story is, it was like, okay, let's get through the exposition so we
Yeah.
can just get back to the action and back to the intensity, because it was really one of the only press pause and let's just let everyone catch up and figure out what the story's about. So again, movies need that. You can't have a film without some exposition, but at the same time, it was a slower moment, so I'll say that was a bit like
For me, I didn't like the George side plot. I know they're trying to show that civilians suffered too, but I felt like, I don't know, fell down the stairs, hit his head, and then he dies. I was like, come on. To me, it felt like a little forced part of it. Like it was
Right.
like, we're going to show you this. This is exactly how.
Yeah.
I guess they could have had the shivering soldier shoot somebody, and that would have been something, but I don't know. It was redeemed a little bit when the son, Peter, I think his name is, the shivering soldier asked him if he's going to make it, and he's like, yeah, he'll be fine, even though he's dead.
Yeah.
I liked it. Yeah, I like those parts more for what it said about the characters around George. Like, it made obviously Cillian Murphy's character a little bit more interesting, because it's like you just feel really bad for the guy, but at the same time you kind of are hating him, right? And you're kind of in that position of the son, starting off being like, when he first asks, is he going to be okay? And he kind of snaps at him, no,
Yeah.
of course he's not okay. To the end where he's like literally carrying the dead body off, and he's like, it's just
Well,
war, man. It's
yeah.
just war.
He had that sense of like what you have to go through.
Yeah.
Are you hungry for some bread and jam?
I was just going to say my stomach is grumbling really loudly, and I can hear it, and I apologize.
What did I go home and eat right after the movie?
I remember watching
Seriously.
it and I thought, they're really liberal with those jam rations. They're really putting a lot of jam onto that bread. But once again, what makes it such a British movie? Bread and jam. Just a big dollop of it. Finally, as you were watching it, did you think you were going to die?
I knew I can say very confidently that I would not survive if I were in the movie.
You didn't, no one
Very
felt
cowardly.
like, you didn't feel like sick or anything like that?
No.
No, actually, I never felt any sort of. I was just so absorbed in the experience. I don't think it was like I was absorbed in watching a great movie, not in like this, in the actual moment. But good question, Matt. I did not have to fear for my life, thankfully.
Yeah. So just to...
I fear for the fact that I probably won't see another movie like that again.
It really is. I mean, just to comment again, it really is an experience that we always at the end of our podcast say, should you see this in theaters? Should you rent it? Should you pass on it? I do believe you should see it in theaters. And if you can, try to go see that 70mm one at the IMAX. If you're in Edmonton, it's easy.
I think I remember back like when we were talking about Spider-Man and how it was a good Marvel movie. But I kind of raised the point of, how essential is seeing these movies really in theaters anymore? Like, it seems like a big spectacle and it's a fun time at the movies. But then when you go and see this, there's virtually no comparison. Like, the whole experience And my experience was equally kind of funny too, because when the trailers were starting, of course it's on film, it was off-centered.
Yes.
The film wasn't lined up properly. So I, of course, left the theater to go tell the attendant or something. Like, oh, it's like it's, there's a big black bar on the side of the screen and the film's like overlapping on the other side. So they shut the movie off for 15 minutes during the trailers. The like general manager guy came in and gave a whole spiel about the film and everything, which was interesting. Talked about how they hadn't actually shown film in that theater since 2011, which then started my mind thinking, what was the last movie they showed in film there? And I can't think of what it would be. And how they had to bring projectionists out of retirement to operate the machine,
projector.
The projector, which I think came from 1999.
Wow.
So I got all these facts before the movie started, but it took them a
That's so
couple
cool.
tries to line up the film properly and everything.
Wow.
And then they started the movie and it was perfect. But everyone in the theater was very patient, and people were like, "Wow, this is actually a cool thing. Very interesting."
The veteran in Calgary actually said something interesting. He said that movies aren't always something that you go to for fun and entertainment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think in the sense that this is kind of a thriller, you do enjoy it, but it really puts you in. I don't think anybody watches that and thinks, "Wow, I wish I was there. I would have showed those Germans what for." Like, there was other than Tom Hardy and his like ghost flight plane takedown at the end, there wasn't anything cool about it. It was just kind of like, this would be awful on so many levels.
Yeah.
And it made me never want to be on a ship underneath the deck ever. Like that guy who decided he would stow away on the railings of the ship. I was
French
like,
guy.
that guy, he knows what's up.
Yeah.
Smart.
That's what I would do.
Yeah.
And he came back and saved them too. So
Yeah, and then got accused. And
yep, tough times for
Yeah.
the French. Anyway,
We didn't even get to talk about how the stories were separate but came together, but I thought that was also,
yeah. No, it's all around a great movie. There's a lot to enjoy. You should go and see it in theaters.
This is the best money I've spent at the movies, and I honestly can't remember how long.
Yeah,
it's
a long
been.
time. Anyway, that's our show for today. I don't think there's any facts.
Just one very quick one, which is that Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales, the latest one, is in fact the highest grossing Pirates of the
I'm
Caribbean.
literally shocked.
Yeah, and it did say that this starts off a new set of stories for Pirates of the
grief.
Caribbean. Yeah.
Why?
With the original characters.
international profits just
Well,
saving the day for Jack Sparrow.
North America is actually, it pulled in $800 million. So it's not.
Well,
Yeah.
speaking of revenue, just because we're talking about Dunkirk,
Yeah.
it didn't do extremely well. I think 50 million in the domestic box office. So I didn't think it was going to be a box office breaking film, but it is.
Also,
still.
the average age in my theater was definitely up there as well.
Well, and it's worth noting, as we are going to wrap up, I had said about this movie when it was coming out that I was like, how can you make Dunkirk interesting? Because it's kind of like they were stranded and then some boats came and got them and then they went home. But I never expected that the movie would just be the third act of the movie that I imagined, that the movie would just be that escape.
Maybe they asked the same question and just said just straight to the third act.
Maybe.
And that's
Kudos,
how
Christopher Nolan.
they cut the movie so short.
Yeah, if he keeps making these, then his, claims against why anyone would want to make movies for Netflix are validated.
Yeah, kudos to him for
He's
that.
keeping film alive.
He and Tarantino.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's our show for this week, and we will see you next week. Thanks to Omar and CGSR and The Gateway. Goodbye.
See you, everyone.
Thank you.